welcome to the Three Beards podcast. My name is Craig, along with Austin and Chris.
Passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century.
Let me out.
I'm afraid that is white.
Then live to send the innocent to their death? Is this justice and honor in Massachusetts colony?
All right. Well, hey, gentlemen, we are back again. So everybody, after our nice little break, because we decided to go on another show and spend some time there. So that was a lot of fun being with Julianne. So everybody, appreciate your patience not having a show last week, but we're back with two. It's going to be great. Hey, April, thanks for tuning in already. So guys, we have an amazing show for you tonight. Wallace, real quick, before I forget, Jared Murphy's on after you on the next show, and he wanted me to tell you hi. So
Hi, Jared.
So I want to make sure I get that. So everybody, I want to pleasure to welcome Wallace Wagner Jr. He is the author of Crossing the Crevasse, and you can go see his at crossingthecrevasse.com. He has information on there of his upcoming appearances, more information on himself and his book. This book, I got the PDF of this. I really enjoyed reading this book. This one is called Crossing the Crevasse, My Epiphany and How It Affected the Bible and Disclosure. This was published in May of 2020, so it's just not even quite a year old. And I mean, we go to the flattery thing. Wallace, he earned a BS from West Virginia University in 1981. He grad studies in Marshall University and University of Charleston. Long time, jack of all trades when it comes to work, from the coal industry to rural postal carrier to, he's done all that. But to start off, a great starting point, like just the inspiration to the book, and we'll just get here. And I'll just mention, it's like you had an amazing experience. If I'm not mistaken on the month, September 2016 is what led to this. And at this moment, I would like to welcome Wallace Wagner Jr. to the show, and I will let you take it from there, sir. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Craig. I'm glad to be here. Hi, guys. It was a wild experience. I guess you would say it was a close encounter of the first kind. I had just made a delivery to a lady. I was a mailman at the time. And I just put a package under the carport and was going back to my vehicle, and something told me to stop and look up. And I did, right in the lady's front yard. And right over my head was something artificial which should not have been there. It transcended all known physics. It had no wings, no windows, no nacelles, no exhaust, nothing. It looked like a solid object. It was gleaming white. Just glistening white. And it was oblong in shape. Not football size, but oblong, straight sides with rounded ends. And I'm guessing it was about 2,000 feet over my head, and I'm guesstimated that it was about 50 feet long and maybe 30 feet wide. And I say it, not they, because I don't know who they is. I don't know whether it's us or them, but it let me see it for about 3 seconds. And then it either cloaked or took off so fast that one could not see it. Now, there was no magnetic anomalies, no sound, none of that. It was just there long enough for me to see it and know that it should not have been there. So I started all these questions, weather balloon, Goodyear blimp, Google taking pictures of the Earth. And then the 1950s mantra, well, it's not a weather inversion, it's a crystal clear blue sky day. Come to the conclusion that it was none of those. So it was a true craft, either of unknown origin or an origin here on Earth that we're not privileged to.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying, because from a couple of the other shows, like I listened to your interview and prepping for this, you really describe the Nimitz Tic Tac almost exactly. And you had it, I think it was with Michael W. Hall on his show. Even the measurements that you described from the distance away to all that stuff was almost identical. And if I'm not mistaken, you didn't even know that until
I did not
Michael
know
Hall,
that.
Yeah, until he brought it. And that's what was crazy. I mean, that's like going in and doing an investigation in a house and having the psychic medium go in before you and you getting your evidence and you come back and you both compare notes and it's identical. I mean, you can't get much more proof and correlation. The words fail you, but just corroboration. Hey, there's the word.
I'm vindicated. What can I say?
Exactly. That was fantastic.
Even the Navy says they don't know what it is.
And then April's asked, so how did you feel when you saw that? Aside from taken aback, startled, what were you?
I'm not sure I was startled. Basically, what I said to myself was, hello there. That's what I said.
Awesome.
I've been desensitized so much. I've always wanted to see, what the terminology, a UFO. And now I saw one and I did not feel threatened at all. But it's one of those things that you're very cautious who you initially, talk to about it. And,
I'm jealous. I'm jealous. My sister's seen one when she was on a hike. She saw the triangle craft with the lights. She saw that up in the sky. So she's seen a UFO. You've seen a UFO. I'm like, man. I mean,
Can
literally,
I see one?
I want to see. I want to see one.
Everybody's seeing them now. They have cell phone cameras. No, but
yeah.
it was a wild. It altered me. I've always had an open mind. I'm like you, that I questioned a lot of this stuff in Sunday school and whatnot. I grew up, conservative Methodist and Southern Baptist too, but I always had an open mind, and now I know. I mean, I'm beyond belief. Once you see it for yourself, you realize that crafts have been around since before Jesus Christ, and they go back into antiquity, and it's just, you can't make this stuff up. We talked about some of the pictures I have in my book. They're just standard UFO crafts. I mean, there again, you can't make this stuff up, and crafts are still being seen today. They're seen by lots of people, and I mean, people with, pedigrees, airline pilots, police, you name it. So I think we're really beyond the question of whether or not they exist. It's now, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle disclosure? And are they really ours with the secret government, or are they from out there?
Yeah.
I think that's that's what society needs to tackle. And if they are from out there, do we have free energy ourselves? I mean, have they shared that with us, or have we back engineered free energy? And how are we going to get that to our society without destroying everything?
Well, that's just it. Is I don't know if we can, because we're so intertwined. You go back to Tesla and Edison. The whole reason Tesla was basically shunned out is he was trying to give it out for free.
Yeah.
Give it to, just give this information out. And Edison was like, and Westinghouse, they're like, we can't profit off this. if you give it out, we can't profit off this. And
That's
so
the key word, isn't it?
Yep. And that's why I say, so this free energy, it's like, it's amazing. I believe we have it because I personally am a believer that we're out there. We've already got something, out of our, if we haven't even, that we potentially are out of the solar system, that we've traveled, but it's just, they're not going to share it because it's all about control. You have to have control, because you can't have an unruly mass of people that, don't listen to your every word. So I have to keep you afraid, keep you controlled, keep you reliant on this light bulb behind that's shining on me, because I can't give you free energy because then I don't control you.
Well, they have to keep society together, the human race together. Yep. I think that's kind of their goal too. And if you just unloaded all this information on everybody at once in an undisciplined manner, we would destroy ourselves. I just don't, I don't think we could handle it. I mean, look at our track record so far, just with H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. I love going back to that.
Oh, I love that show.
We had Panic, when it was on the radio back in 1938, and then it was broadcast again in Chile and in Ecuador. And look what happened in Ecuador. 6 people killed, and they actually ransacked and tore down the radio station. And really, it hadn't been played since. So that's kind of our government's mantra. And then you had the Brookings report, of course, later, that we can't handle the truth. But, we've been desensitized with Star Trek and with Star Wars and with all the cell phone cameras now, and seeing things on the internet that maybe it's like me. If I would have been 8 years old and saw what I saw, I wouldn't have made it out of the yard. Let's put it that way. I would have been frozen, scared, shaken, with my knees knocked. But I just took it in stride almost, aside from questioning what it was, which drove me crazy.
So you say after you saw it, did you get any sleep when you got home? You say you took your memories back home with you. You didn't have time to ponder on what exactly you saw. Did it actually dawn on you even more when you got home? And how much thought did you put into it?
Lots. I did get some sleep, but my wife and I talked for quite a while. And I remember going to sleep and I was asking myself all these questions. Was it ours? Did I really see what I saw? How did it disappear? Did it really cloak? Do we have all this hidden technology? Like Paul Hillier says, we've spent thousands of billions of dollars that our government, meaning our Congress and president, don't even know about on these black projects. I know we've got back engineered stuff, but have we gone as far to set a new set of guidelines, a new set of rules for physics, and they're just keeping us from it? So then I questioned, did it want me to see it, or maybe it was a malfunction? Maybe somehow they read my mind as to what caused me to stop and look up. Maybe they were telling me to stop and look up with telepathy, and maybe they knew I would write a book. You start, all this goes through your mind. So I had a hard time going to sleep, but I did get some sleep. And it was a while before I really exposed it. I mean, I told some people in my Sunday school class and a few family members, but it was a while afterwards before, I felt comfortable talking about it.
Oh, yeah. No, I was wanting to start with you because you took what would be an amazing trip for most people. You went to Israel, and you went to Egypt, and I forgot to introduce you that you were a semi criminal from Egypt because you snuck in some contraband into the pyramid there. So, and that would be. I'm not going to say what page that's on because it's in his book. And so, like Reading Rainbow says, if you want to know more, you have to get this book and read this story.
Well, let's just say I was surprised they got the camera, but I was able to get in with the other piece of equipment. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that was.
It did prove very useful after I got in there because a lot of the stuff you've been told is true. So it's unbelievable inside the Great Pyramid. It's unbelievable.
And that's one of those things. When we just had Stephen Myers on there and hit his theory, which for me, it's actually one of the more sound ones. He believes in a lock system that they floated these blocks into place. that just kind of like the you have the canals.
When you say float, you mean on water or using
on
sand?
water on water. So you
okay.
have like the canal, Suez Canal. You have the canal to where you bring the thing and flood it. It lifts it up, and you just slide it right over into place. And so they just had an elaborate system, and he went through that thing, and I'm like, this actually makes sense. And one of the things, like you say in the book, and it's where I really connected to your line of thinking about this too, is how and I'll let you describe this, because the way you say it, is a lot more eloquent, where the Great Pyramid is not the top. This is probably the start of the system. Like this, I'm a believer that these dynasties from Egypt, they actually found these things, the Sphinx, the pyramid, and then and like I said, I'm going to let you take it from here, because like I said, the way you describe it is going to.
You stated that so eloquently, Craig. I totally agree with you. That was the first one. All these others are copies. I mean, that's the only logical conclusion one can come to. I mean, the guides over there tell you, these pharaohs, they finally got it right with Khufu's pyramid, which, by the way, is not a tomb. And I don't think any pharaoh's ever been found in a pyramid, but that's another topic for another day. But you're taught that they started with rocks, and then they progressed to these step pyramids, and then they progressed to the bent pyramids, trying to get the angles right, because all that weight would sink and whatnot on the sand and fall apart. And then they finally got it right with Khufu's pyramid. What's after Khufu?
Exactly.
let me tell you, 70 years later, it's a pile of rocks, literally a pile of rocks. Now, where's all that knowledge that all these thousands of people had putting this together, and what happened to these one-up, ordeal with these pharaohs, especially in a time in Egypt where it was pretty much stable. So what's the deal? You get quietness if you mention that. It's just like you can hear a pin drop.
Yeah, they don't let that's one of the
don't
craziest.
Want you to see Userkaf's pile of rocks. I mean, that's not on the tour scene. So
yeah, so Egyptology, it's one of those things. We've had several guests on, everything from Scott Walter to other ones where we're talking about these things, where it's, to me, as an archaeologist, as somebody like this, you can definitely tell that there's an agenda, because they are completely unwilling to deviate from the narrative. And you're like, you could bring, we talked with Scott Walter, it's the same thing. It's like, how many rocks do I have to bring from the Americas that have Templar engravings on them for you to finally admit that maybe the Templars were on this continent? But everybody's like, no,
they were.
Yeah, and they won't admit it. They're like, no, it was, everybody's like, they're stuck on this narrative, and you're like, okay, we had the Mayans coming over here getting for their blue, for their dye, getting clay from Georgia. You've got all these. We're pretty sure that. I mean, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I know a lot of people. Phoenicians, the Egyptians, everybody made it over to South America on the Amazon because they found Egyptian tablets.
But it's
in the Amazon, and that shouldn't be there. And some Spanish conquistador didn't make a little side trip to Egypt, grab a tablet, and then sail all the way over here to Central America and South America, and then accidentally drop it in a hole, and it got lost.
But it'd be a lot harder it would be a lot harder to rewrite history versus just tell the truth, because you would have to go back and take out everything you've ever wrote in every book, every museum, everything would have to be readapted to follow the new narrative. So I think it would be just to keep covering it up is a lot easier than going back and telling, well, you know what, we were wrong all these years. They did exist. So, I mean, that's just my theory.
Exactly.
You might, I know you said this in one of the shows, and I'm trying, like I said, correct me on this one, because when I'm looking through the thing, I don't remember, like the Sphinx, the pyramids. It seems like these things would be critical omissions in the Bible, that they're not talked about, in detail. And it's, and as we get into the Bible, because that's what, that's the whole premise of your book. I told you, like, I've always had questions, and one of the ones was like, Jesus, here is the the star character, the leader of, just this is the thing gears around this. We know very little about this man. We know when he was born. We know when he was young, tossed in the tabernacle. But then there's this, for some reason, I think it's like 18, 20 years of his life.
You got it.
Are unaccounted for. And you're like, this guy, 3 wise men followed, I completely agree with you. They followed a star all the way to Bethlehem. Yeah, it's, and you're like, so here's this guy this is the Son of God, the Savior of all of us, and yet everybody was like, hey, did you write that down? Oh, crap, I forgot. All right, did you guys remember what he said right there? No. Maybe the other guy on the other side of the hill, heard it, and we'll get his notes. What happens to this from the time he is basically an early teen to riding in on a donkey?
Oh, it's a cult in the other book.
Yeah, that's the other thing. This is supposedly the inspired word of God that comes, verbatim. And you're supposed, you go to some of the churches, you're supposed to believe this word for word. Every word that's in this book was given to us by God himself. But yet, as man, and this is the other thing I told you when I was at the seminary school, they absolutely hated, and you bring it up in your thing too, because I think you use, is it 3 different versions in your book?
I actually use 4.
4.
Yeah.
This one's
Learning Bible too, or the
this one's the
newer version.
Yeah, this is the new Open Bible, the King James version. I liked this one because it had pictures.
Oh God!
I didn't know.
No, it was cool. It had images like, you'd go in there and it'd show you like Jerusalem. It was what I like that's why I picked that one. But it was just you have this book. I was getting sidetracked there. But this is you have this book where you're supposed to do this thing, and you're looking at it, and what happened to where they just decided we're not gonna document his life anymore. Now, is it because it didn't fit the narrative? As in, I've got the Gnostic Bible down here too, because Wallace will back me up, and I'm going to back him up on too. If you guys have not read the Book of Enoch, you best read that thing from first word to last word and memorize it, because that is you've got
to read that to even understand the Bible. I mean, you've got to read it. It's that imperative. It should have been left in.
You said it on Conflict Radio, and I didn't even know this. The Book of Job is the oldest one.
Yep.
I mean, this is older than in the beginning book. I mean, it's like you think that would be the first in the beginning. It seems like that should be the first one.
You mentioned something in one of your interview on the podcast radio. I was wondering why do you think Christians won't recognize the fact that when you get carbon copies, it dates back later than what they said the Earth was created? I mean, I understand carbon copy doesn't tell lies. If you carbon copy something, you know the actual date when it dates back to when they said the world was created. Why do you think they won't accept that? I mean,
so you're referring to carbon-14 dating? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes,
well,
sir.
The young Earth proponents seem to fall into the category of believing that the decay of carbon and the amount of, I guess, radiation from the sun was different at different times. So that puts a flaw in the equation, and things are actually much younger than what the carbon-14 dating would seem to tell us. I've got a problem with that. A lot of people have a problem with that. I'm a proponent of carbon-14 dating as long as it's within 50,000 years. And you only have to go back 10,000 years before you blow the young Earth theory out of the water. But there's corrections and calculations you can make now, which get you within a very narrow range. And a good person that knows how to do the carbon-14 will give you the range. They don't give you a specific date. They'll give you a range of a few thousand years to compensate for the changes in the carbon over the previous history. So, but a lot of these people, and I hate to use the word these people because I come from that same realm myself.
A lot of us did.
But they follow the agenda. I mean, it's easy to believe, if you believe everything in the Bible, that the earth's only 6,000 years old. And that's been a big sticking point with me and a lot of my friends. We've gotten into some, I don't want to say arguments, but some very heated discussions, maybe is the right way to say that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, if you can't believe what's in there, then how can you believe anything that's in there? And that's what it says. Why can't you believe it? Well, you can't. There's nowhere in here that says the earth is 6,000 years old. You're having to read between the lines with a phrase that, a day is but 1,000 years, to try to make the case that because it mentions 6 days of creation, each 1,000 years, that the earth's only 6,000 years old. But, people believe what they're taught lots of times and they go with it. And that becomes their reality. You have to sometimes step outside the gate.
Well, and Chastity just commented there about the Virgin Mary, and that was one of the and kudos, because that was one of the questions I was going to have for you. Because here is something for me, and that was one of the questions that drove him crazy. Because I asked, it's like, okay, you have the the virgin birth. Most people, when in modern technology, it's called artificial insemination.
Exactly. That's what I would call it.
So how, it would not be, they said the angel of the Lord came to Mary and said, you're going to be pregnant. That sounds like the modern descriptions of you've been through an abduction, you've been taken up into a craft, and, you have, whether you want to say it was experimentation or whatever. But if this is the thing, like if like in your book, the way you describe it, as God, as one of these, people that's in a craft and doing things, wouldn't this make sense if you want your son to be, to come into the world? You'd have somebody that you'd say, this is a vessel that I think would be a perfect carrier for, for my kid. Artificial insemination, you send the person back down to the planet, and now you have this miracle, this virgin birth. She's never had had relations with Joseph, and now she's pregnant,
and still in the lineage.
Yep, and it makes complete sense, and that's so. Chastity, thank you for bringing that up. That was one of the ones I wanted to get you, because that's
so. I have no problem with the virgin birth at all. Next topic.
That's it. It just as I was reading your book, and that's why I want to compliment you so much. Is I was connecting with this thing because this was right up my alley, because this was hitting almost every point. Whenever I've had like a Bible study discussions, I've always brought these up. And I always prefaced it when I'd go to these things to say, okay, guys, I just want to let you know right now, I'm not trying to destroy your faith. I just want to let you know, when I bring this stuff up, you're not going to like it.
God is still God. If he didn't love us, we wouldn't be here this very second.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I had a guy, one of my friends, he was all, he's all, up in arms about like Easter, like them not calling it Easter. And I told him, I go, you do realize that modern Christianity has borrowed almost, I would say probably 90% of the traditions from pagan and other cultures in their practices and their worship to bring everybody into the fold of Christianity to help convert them. Well, you're not going to take a pagan that believes in worshiping the goddess Eoster and rabbits and do it all this. You're not going to be able to tell them, no, you need to believe in the guy that died on the, the two wooden sticks over there. They're not going to go for it. But when you incorporate that into it, all of a sudden everybody is, they're excited. They're like, okay, I can go with this.
Mm.
And that, and so that's why I said yours, like it was just, it's like point after point after point. I'm just like, oh God, I love this. So it was just, flipping page. I was loving it.
Well, thank you for the compliments. I mean,
yeah,
that means a lot. But there would have been the book covers so many different topics. I just threw a wide net out there, hoping to catch someone on one of these topics and draw them in. If I could just find a way to open your eyes just a little bit, you might look at things with a different focus. And that's what I did after I saw The Craft. I went back and reread everything and looked at it in a different lens. And the Bible just opened up. It all made sense now. There were so many things you have read your whole life, time after time after time, and you never questioned it. You just kept on reading and never stopped to think and go outside the box and around to realize, well, wait a minute. I mean, Zechariah's calling these chariots of fire spirits. And David says that God flies on a cherub. And God moves on the wings of eagles, and just on and on and on. And Elijah is on Mount Sinai, and God passes by with a great and powerful wind, tearing out the rocks and into pieces, and thunders and lightnings, and you just go on. And Moses getting the 10 Commandments, he was basically radiated. Let's face it, some of the books not in the Bible actually state that he was glowing so much, and his appearance changed. He was radiant that he actually had to wear a cloth over his face, but he was physically changed.
Now, I don't remember if I have ever heard you talk about this one in any of your interviews, but it's one of the ones that's always been a stickler for me. And Chris knows about this one. I've said it several times. The passage when he says, "Thou shalt not place any other gods before me." And that's always been what I'd always ask, like the professors at that seminary school, is I said, okay, it doesn't say I am the only God. There is no other gods. Any other God you come up with doesn't exist. It says, "Thou shalt not place any other gods before me." So in my interpretation, in reading that literally, like you're supposed to, he's admitting that he isn't the only God. You are just supposed to worship me first, and then you have the other gods.
Bingo.
And
we have a bingo.
Yeah. And that was what. And so as your book, I'm just like, right now, you get the little tingles. You're sitting here, like, oh my God, you got the chills. And you're just like, well, this is exactly what I was.
Let's go back to in the beginning, what you just mentioned, Craig. Elohim. You've heard that word before. Most of your teachers would tell you, well, that's just another name for God, along with all the other names. I am means plural. Now, if you come from a good conservative background, the pluralism means Father, Son, Holy Spirit. But in the Hebrew tradition, that word Elohim was used 2,500 times or more in their Bible, and it's all been taken out. And not only that, it was Elohim that created the earth, and Elohim meant males and females. That's who created the earth, Elohim. Elohim, 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 all throughout the Old Testament. Multiple people, male and female, and it's all been taken out to support, as you would say, I guess, an agenda. To the one God. The one God is the God, the creator God of the entire universe, is the God that was here in the craft, flying around, having Moses go around and kill all the competing tribes trying to get to Canaan. I'm sorry, that does not jive with me at all, and never has. That's not a loving God.
No, what was I trying to remember what show we talked about it, because it was one of the ones, and I've said this to Chris. It's one of those, it's like always bakes people's noodles, because I always said, when did God stop caring? When did God stop caring? And they're like, what do you mean? I go, if you read the Bible literally, God is hands-on. He is destroying Sodom and Gomorrah. He is burning bushes. He is doing all this stuff, splitting mountains, flooding the earth. And then at some point, he's just like, did he get bored? Did he just decide, like, I've done enough? And if we needed Jesus to save us all, why did he wait so long? Why did you go through all this stuff? As you go through these questions, I'm like, and this is when you get to the Bible studies, you're like, guys, this is going to be the one that's going to be hard for you to answer, because this is when you start getting this stuff, there's not an easy answer, because you have to look at it and you're going, at some point you have to acknowledge he is literally hands-on. Like, hey, that car's in the way, swat the car out of the way. And now it's just like, well, I guess if it happens, it happens. At least as long as you believe in me, we're going to be okay. And you're just like, I don't understand what changed. And nobody has an answer for that.
And this is another one that scares people off. Me and Craig has thrown around this idea. This bakes people's noodles. So you compare me to the sex offender. It says we all are creating in the spitting image just like him. So how come that sex offender is, out there, and the man who's driving home with a whole family gets killed in a car crash? Like, I just don't see that one. And people are like, well, no, we're all equal. Okay, if you say so, but
I don't know that too. When my youth pastor is the same way. He loved me being at church because I was playing devil's advocate. Especially when my dad passed away, I was like, "How come my dad passed away? Oh, it's his time." I said, "What about the person that just shot up a bunch of people, or about the person that's murdering people and still walking the earth? How come my dad, who took care of me and did nothing but take care of my entire family, died, but he's still walking? I can't explain it." And he was honest. He's like, "I really can't explain it. I really have no answer for you." And I was like,
Well,
why?
I don't have a definitive answer, but by gum, I have an opinion.
Yeah.
Would you like for me to share that opinion?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's one of the most profound verses in the Bible, and people read it and don't understand it. It's Daniel 10, verses 12 through 13. And it goes in conjunction with Ephesians 6:12. But Daniel 10, 12 through 13 goes like this. Then he, meaning Gabriel, said to me, "Don't be afraid, Daniel. From the very first day you set your heart on understanding this and on humbling yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to your words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia was standing in my way for 21 days. Then behold, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I had been left there with the kings of Persia." Now think about that. Daniel prayed, but his prayer was delayed. Why was it delayed? Because of this spiritual warfare, this fighting in heaven. And Ephesians 6:12 looks at it this way: "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness." Now listen carefully. "Against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places." So when these things happen, it makes me think, and this is just an opinion, that your guardian angel, and which I do believe in, there's angels all around us, are, temporarily busy fighting. They'll get to you as soon as they can. Really. You read into Daniel 10 and see if you come up with something different.
Well, and
if you do, I'd like to know what it is, really, seriously. I mean,
yeah, I wanted to expand on that. Like you said, they're fighting in heavenly places. I mean, I never took that literally as they were, there's wars going on in, paradise and heaven, but I took it as heavenly places as, this planet, that planet. I mean, it's just like solar, like outside the solar system, like there is actual, different worlds that these are, because you said in one of them, the name of that planet is failing me. I apologize. Meroz. Yep. That's the one.
Meroz.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. From Judges.
Yep, and that was the one where, as soon as you said that, it was just that along the fighting, the forces in the heavens, right there it clicked. It's like we're talking about interplanetary conflicts. We're not talking about these metaphors. We're not talking about the devil has sent up the legion to fight in heaven. It's and the angels and demons are fighting right outside the gates of heaven. No, he's literally talking that just. You can use whatever you want, Valhalla, you have Valhalla, but you're still fighting, the other realms.
Exactly.
There's still these conflicts.
And that's where our citizenship is. Our citizenship is in heaven, and that's where we're going. So is that in our future? Will we be considered sons of God because we're on the good side? And will we be faced with fighting evil? Because evil does exist, not only here, but out there as well. It's not all roses when you when you die. We're often taught that, well, you're going to heaven and everything's going to be bliss and all this love and all. Really, I don't see that anywhere in the Bible. All I see is wars in heaven, and our citizenship is in heaven, and we'll be in paradise. But how long are we in paradise? I mean, are we there for eternity? Is paradise just heaven, and we're in heaven for eternity? Surely we're just not going to sit there and go around and smell the flowers and take little walks every day. And I don't see that happening. I see other jobs for us, and this is just a training while we're here right now. We're in grade school. That's the way I view it.
Never heard of it.
Soul training. Soul training.
Yeah. It's like Dante's Inferno. It's what I said. You have the different levels, and I believe it is. I firmly believe that because we've been one of those.
Look, Enoch says different levels. The Buddhists say different levels. The Hindus say different levels. Wake up. Paul in Corinthians says level 3, and level 3's where we go.
I agree. Because Chris, the way he said it, it's like and Austin, when we've talked about this, I say there has to be cosmic universal justice. It's like, how does the little old lady that gives her entire life, and you have a serial killer who suddenly right at his death's doorstep asks for forgiveness? I go, they're going to the same place. I go, there has to be, a reckoning. And so that might be she's up here in this level, and that person's down, down.
Look at the Gregory. When you read Enoch, you realize that the angels that left their abode, referring to Genesis 6 and mentioned in Jude, they're on level 2, so they're a level below us.
And
they're called the Gregory, the giants, or the Nephilim, whatever your train of thought is on that. The angels were sons of God that left their abode. They're on level 2.
Yep. That makes sense. I said that.
And another thing, purgatory. Think about this. It was taken out of the Bible. It was originally in there, but it's like reincarnation. It was in there initially too, but not the Bible, but accepted in Christianity for so many hundreds of years, and it gets weeded out to fit. I guess I hate to keep using that word, an agenda, but that's exactly what it is.
Well, it seems like that because I'm sure you've heard the saying, the fastest way to become rich is to start religion. That's the fastest way to wealth.
And you take 80% of what's there, so you can get some people to go with you, and you tweak it by about 20%, just enough so you say it's different.
Yep. I mean, we've all heard it, and that's why I said anybody that doesn't believe there's an agenda. There's the viral videos. It's the couple of the megachurch pastors who were talking amongst themselves about why they needed to have their private jet, is because they're, how am I supposed to communicate with God if I'm flying around in a tube full of demons?
Boy.
Yeah. And that's what and so you have these ones, and you see these things, and then you realize it's like these guys, that's why I agree with you. It's like whether people like it or not, there is an agenda, because and I think a lot of pastors, ministers, they don't even really, it's not that they're conspiring, like, here's how we can, trick all these people. This, they believe. I mean, they honestly take the book, and they believe what's in here. And that just is one of the other says, it's them not questioning the fact, like the passage, like when Jesus is talking to the apostles and saying, I will return, for the second coming, and he ascends to heaven. Just in your book, I don't believe that he just suddenly, is floating away like Grandpa Joe took fizzy lifting drinks and just starts floating up, just like, bye, just starts taking off. I go, when you're thinking, I honestly believe it was probably like, the craft came up, got it, and it's gone, like the Tic Tac,
When he was in the desert and the angels came, the angels fly on the crafts too. There's crafts every time an angel appears.
Yeah. And
every time.
Yeah. That's every, it's just, what was that? I think you mentioned it too. Wasn't it Elisha that had the one where he called out, for help because of the enemies were surrounding them?
Yeah. Elisha. His servant was nervous and scared, but the servant could not see the cloaked chariots of fire up in the sky. So Elisha prayed to God to open the servant's eyes, and the servant's eyes were opened, and he saw all these chariots of fire coming down from the sky around Elisha. And then Elisha prayed that the Lord would blind the enemies, and that's exactly what happened. So, I mean, these chariots of fire, I think we're beyond this too, is without a doubt crafts. Elijah was taken up in a craft.
Yeah, that's Don, the Christopher said it's like Keanu Reeves, like they're in a Constantine when he's just floating away, going up towards heaven. Yeah, it's that same way. But yeah, I agree, because if you look at the, like I said, if you read the Bible and you believe it, so you're telling me that you believe that a wooden and metal chariot suddenly left the ground and is flying around in the sky while it's on fire with a rider in it being pulled by a horse. I go, that you believe that, but somebody like Wallace saying, I believe this is their way of grasping mentally what they're seeing and talking about it. This guy, he's out there and he's a heretic. He is non-believer. He's not, his salvation is in jeopardy now because he does not believe it's an actually literally chariot that's on fire floating around with a horse pulling it.
I'm going to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, exactly. I don't. It's just
Bible thumpers. What you are is a Bible thumper.
Yeah, it's. Oh, I just shake the book.
You mentioned Morose a minute ago, and somebody wants to look that up because they don't understand what it is. Where do they go to look it up? Commentaries. Mm-hmm. Commentaries, whether it's MacArthur, if he even bothers to mention it, because typically he doesn't mention anything that's real tough. And if he does, it's to smooth the waters and keep everybody in the same boat. But anywhere you look, Morose is considered to be a city or a town or a geographical location somewhere. But no one can even agree on where that was. But you go to the Jewish Talmud. The Jewish Talmud says it's a celestial object. It's a planet, without doubt. Now that makes sense. And why does the Lord need help anyway?
Well,
why does the Lord need help?
If you're an being, you're the omnipotent being, that you were the greatest that all is, there shouldn't be any help needed.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm like, at that point, I mean, how do you help somebody that is above, like I said, what more can I add to that? I mean, really, it's just, you go example. I mean, I agree with you completely. As growing up, Revelations was always my favorite book. When I got bored sitting there in church and I didn't really care about what they were talking about, again, I would always flip to Revelations.
I know where you're going. I'm there reading something completely different, not even paying attention to that stupid old sermon because it makes no sense.
The trumpets. Now, do you honestly believe in angels coming down like Monty Python?
No.
Yeah, like Monty Python and no. I'm thinking Close Encounters of the Third Kind when they have the thing.
Anytime you hear a trumpet, that's something to do with a craft, some type of a sound.
Yeah.
I mean, they only had the Hebrews back then only had like 2,500 words. Now you think about that. So one word could have all kinds of different meanings. And here we are with our English language with, 6 digits worth of words, hundreds of thousands. And we have the ability to take one word and it pretty much might have 1 or 2 or 3 meanings. But back then, one word could have all kinds of meanings and you had to put it in context. So thunder or lightning or
spirit,
trumpet or spirit, all these things, glory, have different meanings, and you have to, put it in context.
Yeah. For the people listening, if you don't mind, would you go into a little bit about spirit, like that? Because I know that one, as I heard you describe, and the way you do it in the book too, it's just really fascinating the way that you break down how the word spirit was used in the Bible.
Well, it's used in a lot of ways, but it's Zechariah that actually makes the connection, which, opened my eyes. That was the starting point for me. And I want to read that for our audience. It's Zechariah chapter 6, verses 1 through 5. And this is one of those that I've read so many times, but never made the connection until after my sighting. Now I raised my eyes again and looked, and behold, 4 chariots were going out from between the 2 mountains, and the mountains were bronze mountains. With the first chariot were red horses, with the second chariot black horses, with the third chariot white horses, with the fourth chariot strong spotted horses. So I responded and said to the angel who was speaking with me, "What are these, my Lord?" The angel replied to me, "These are the 4 spirits of heaven going out after taking their stand before the Lord of all the earth." Now, first of all, mountains are not made of bronze, and they're also up in the sky. And you have these multicolored horses, or chariots of fire, if you want to insert that, but that's not what it says. These different colored horses coming out of these mountains, and they're spirits. Now, each of these colored horses, I like to think of orbs because of all the different colored orbs you see today coming out of a bronze mountain up in the sky. They're called spirits. Now, is someone in that spirit? And I believe that they are. And if you look at the word spirits that way, then you go over to the New Testament in John and Revelation, our favorite book, by the way, chapter 4, verse 1. And if you realize that a spirit is a craft coming out of heaven or moving, it changes the whole flavor of what I'm going to read. After these things I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven. And the first voice which I had heard, like the sound of a trumpet, speaking with me, said, "Come up here, and I will show you what must take place after these things." And immediately I was in the Spirit. Now, how many times have I read that? Probably, being that it's in Revelation, probably 40, 50 times. Okay, it's a door standing in heaven. It's a door in a craft. And now that you know that spirit is a craft and he was in the spirit riding around in the heavens, you realize that he was called up into a craft, and he went up into the craft, and he was flowing around the heavens. And that's without a doubt.
And I take it literally as he was flying around in the heavens, as in not just flying around up in the sky, going through the clouds. Like we are out of the planet. He's, wherever you're, Andromeda. I mean, wherever you're, like I said, whatever realm, whatever it takes it is. I believe, because like I said, when you're back in that time, how do you describe, another planet? You say
that's a good.
I'm in the heavens.
You might call it a star, and you call it the heavens.
Yeah, we talked a little bit prior to the show. Mentioned I don't want to. I'd be remiss not to talk about this one, the Bethlehem star. We had the wise men. You described it, and I love that part.
Any light in the sky was called a star, even if they moved like they're not supposed to move. It's still a star. That's the only word they had for it. And the Bethlehem star. Now you think about this. How often do you think that these wise men showed up while Jesus was still in the manger? I mean, that's kind of sort of what we have in our minds because that's what we're taught. But many, many months, perhaps as long as 2 years, is how long that took for these people to ride on camels at night and come from the east all the way over to Bethlehem. Now you think about that. But nonetheless, They had control of this star. And what do I mean by that? They followed this star, or the star let them follow it, and the star took them to Bethlehem. And then they met with Herod, and the star took them from there over to the place where Jesus was born. So this star was not a star. It was a craft with lights. And that's exactly how they got to Bethlehem. And on that same night, by the way, you had the shepherds out in the field watching their flocks by night. And what happens? Angels appear, and this light shone down around them in a circle, just like a stage. And of course, they're scared to death. Same thing happened to Paul on the Damascus road. This light in the sky shone down. And who did he ask? Who was in the craft at that point? Jesus. Exactly. He was in the craft. So now we have God in the craft, angels in the craft, and Jesus in a craft.
Austin, there's that picture that I sent you. It's kind of greenish in color. It's like it almost looks faded, where there's a UFO on the top and it's shining light. It's the baptism of Jesus with John the Baptist.
It's the wrong one.
No, that's the right one.
That's the right one.
No, yeah. That's the right one. Yep, that's the one. And it's like Wallace, I don't know if you could see that. It said, because you look at this art.
I see it now.
Yeah, they have it here. You can clearly see, when they talk about the light shining down upon them. This, as a Renaissance paint, back then, it's like, why would they?
You can't make this up, guys.
Why would you depict it that way? It's just, you see a disc with lights coming down, and that.
No, you see a star, and you see glory. those lines coming down. By the way, glory. That's really glory. That's another definition for glory: a radiant, brilliant light. And it's the same thing mentioned in Silent Night. Glory streaming down. Those are glories streaming down from the craft.
Yeah, and then Austin, that 3-panel one that shows the crucifixion. This one, for anybody says this is another panel for the non-viewing one. So I'll describe it. It's depicting the crucifixion. If you look up in the top left and the right of the corners, you'll see nanny cakes right there. Hey, there we go. You'll see what's depicting, on both sides. You're going to see they're not depicting a moon and a sun. You'll see these pictures. You'll see if you look up here, and I've got them here. I've got them kind of blown up here so people can see it here. I'll share it. I'll share it here from my side. You can, when you zoom in, you're able to see that this is, in this depiction, it is somebody piloting a ship with the image of a star on it, which correlates the same thing. Here you have artists hundreds of years ago painting these depictions. They don't know what a spaceship is. This thing, so it's not like modern, like somebody just painted this last week. This is something back when people are taking it from oral traditions. They're listening to these things, and then when you see these two pictures blown up, you clearly see they are depicting what we call nowadays, unidentified aerial phenomenon, UFOs. This right here is prime example. This is what they depicted, and like you said, every time we have major events with Jesus, these are around, which shows that either they are really intent on this person, or this person's involved with these crafts. That's the only two ways I could take it. They either really are fascinated with him, or he's part of them. There's got to be one of the two, because it's too much of a coincidence that he's always there with a craft. And so
totally agree.
And but
another things, all these rock carvings. People back then were concerned with safety, heat, and food, and clothing. It had to take the time to draw something with a craft like another picture I have in there on the rock and beings that don't look like us. It was really an experience for them to take the time to do that. They didn't have free time back then. They had to stay alive.
And, Mark A just put it here, Jesus said, my Father is not of this earth, and I said, it's, he's talking about God, we were made in, God's image. Well, one of the reported alien species that has visited us here, oh God, the name is just, it's like kind of like the Andromedans, they look like us.
The Nordics.
The Nordics, and then there's also the other one where
Arcturians.
I think that's the one where they have, same thing. They're the same like body size. They're not miniature. They're not different shape, and it kind of ties into a lot of people who believe in the, we were seeded onto this planet, that we basically, whether you want to say like Genesis probe from Star Trek, that they put the planet, and we were brought here for this purpose, and it wasn't some, well, we need slave labor, we need just a group, a bunch of slaves. I think it was just one of those. This was, we have this. It's basically, it's almost like the gift of life. You're here. Just go out and have fun. And we're gonna just make sure you don't blow yourself up with a nuke, as we've seen the UFOs go and deactivate them. It's one of those. But as you said, I mean, we've got just a few more minutes here, but I can't keep saying how much I enjoyed your book, because it's one, to me, it was validation of the things that as I was growing up. Yeah, I've always just had questions in my mind that, and April just said the star seeds, and that's kind of the same thing. It's like I feel like something.
Well, I'm a firm believer in reincarnation now, regardless of what you're taught. So, Austin, I believe your dad's still alive. You just can't see him. He simply passed from this realm to another realm. And as all of our loved ones do, death is simply a passing. I'm fully convinced of that now. And I'm also convinced, as a personal belief, that I was alive before I was born. So that goes hand in hand with it. I'll be alive after I die. So,
yeah, we believe in that too. I know I do. I believe that my daughter, my aunt is reincarnated as my daughter. It's bad to say, but there's more of a connection with my daughter than my other kids, and she has the same traits as my aunt when she was a kid, apparently, and there's a connection all the time. And my daughter was born, actually tomorrow is her second birthday, and that's when my aunt was passing away. I asked my sister, I was like, hey, do you think there's a chance that, Aunt Lynn will become Everly? She's like, I don't know. And then she ended up passing away like 2 months later. I said, but there's still a chance, maybe her spirit left her body, but her, that's what we think. So yeah, it's one of those weird things that you can believe what you want, but I believe
you got the energy. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, who was John the Baptist? Elijah.
Yeah. You believe what you want. I mean, it can be completely wrong, but where do you go? Nobody really knows where you go after you die, and it's. I mean,
that's one of the greatest mysteries. Yep, that's the eternal question. Everybody has. It's like where do we go when
Just give them a short answer. Level 3.
Yep, there you go. Level 3. Yeah, I just. Man, it's one of those things. It's like I want to get into more. It's like I just don't want to get too involved. One thing as we're getting closer.
Oh, there's so many topics you could talk about, but I intermingle the new city with the kingdom of heaven. For me, that's pretty much the same thing, and that's the way I view it. So when the kingdom of heaven is near, I look at that as being a physical place, maybe 1,500 square or cubic miles in each direction, and in that kingdom of heaven contains all the levels. So that kingdom of heaven is all out in space, all through the heavens, because the Jewish Talmud again says that God has 18,000 worlds to manage, and we're just one.
Yeah.
So that kingdom is moving around, and perhaps all these crafts that contain these heavenly hosts and angels and whatnot actually are going to and from the kingdom, coming here. It's just in another realm where we can't see it, or they have the ability to travel like that through space and time.
That's, and I was looking over my notes, and I had one more thing that I really wanted to get to. It's because when we've kind of passing is, all the people from like the church that used to go to, the church I used to go to, one of the biggest stumbling blocks that, people have always had that, it's like, why you have such an unwavering faith in a supreme being that, you are dead set, this for a fact, but they're at the same time, they are unwilling, to believe that we are, that there's nothing, there's more than just us, that this supreme being created this vast universe and we are the only people that he created. I'm like,
there's a lot of people that believe that,
yeah.
Craig, and that's, I guess, that's another reason I wrote the book. They just need to find one place to where maybe they can just open up their mind just a little bit. And once it's opened, they can see all this, and it just changes their reality and will change their focus and change their beliefs. But it's enhanced my belief in God. It hasn't diminished it. I mean, it's increased my spirituality and probably decreased my belief on religion. But from a spiritual standpoint, I've been totally elevated.
I would agree with that, pretty hardly. It's because I don't really call myself the true definition of a Gnostic, because I believe that there was a creator. I don't know what that creator was. I don't know who it is.
There's definitely a creator, and I just think of him as a supreme being.
Yeah, and I've always been that way. It's like him or her. I've always joked around. I go, it could be a giant spaghetti monster out in space.
Giant may not look like us either.
Yeah,
I don't. These entities come in all different shapes and sizes and features. I mean, from praying mantis to reptilians to 3-footers to tall ones to blue-skinned. I mean, just on and on and on. I mean,
because it's kind of like a little follow-up on that. It's like, in a way, how conceited is that you're willing to put to determine that this being that could do anything that they want is hampered by one and done. I made humans and I'm done. I go, this, if you believe that, boom, we're here, creation, everything just suddenly appeared. I go, why wouldn't there be millions of other civilizations throughout the universe? Because if you really are a creator and you want people to worship you, why wouldn't you go for more? Why would you be happy with a couple of, with a few ants going to you the whole time? Why not have a vast quantity of different creatures that are, worshiping you at the same time? I mean, you would think that this would be just something that nobody would have a problem with, but this is such a stickler that they're like, if you tell them, no, I believe there's other civilizations, boom, they lose it. They're like, no, absolutely not. You're like, I mean, it's one of those. I'm a believer that science and religion have more in common than they really understand. I go, we believe that the Earth is almost 6 billion years old. I think is the last estimate, something like 5.8 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And
we went from 4.5 up to about 6.
And I'm like, doesn't that coincide with the 6 days? If you actually went with 1 billion years, you would be at, the 7th day right now, because you're right at the 6 billion years. I go, you could even make the case right there that for every billion years was considered a day. I mean, because nobody knows.
Sure. I mean, that's a case where 1,000 years was just a long period of time. It's a metaphor. It doesn't mean literally 1,000 years. I mean, not to me anyway. It's a long period of time. And with God, time doesn't exist anyway. So what is time? Time's only for us here on this planet. Rotation, revolve. I mean, that's all it is. Time. I mean, go out in space. Maybe things aren't quite the way we think they may be. I mean, look, I've talked to a remote viewer, and it makes no difference whether you're going to the moon or you go to Saturn. There's no time lag. None.
Yep, exactly. And that's one of the that's a really good point, because when you have remote viewing, it's not like They're like, okay, I'm going to go look at this place. All right, well, I'll get back to you in 3 hours because it takes me a second to get there. I got a remote
we look at
travel
everything
there.
literally.
It's like,
I mean,
yeah,
we even
literally
looked
just
at the
boom.
book of Revelation, starting at the beginning, literally going from one end, literally to the end. And what if John received all this information from all these different angles, but you can only write linearly? So, I mean, it may be slightly mixed up, but we're not allowed to change it.
Yeah.
So,
no, wow. All right. We probably should stop it right here before I get us off into another.
One more thing. Think about
I
the
do.
rapture. And even Paul says we'll be gone in a split second. Where?
Yes.
Up in the clouds. But Jesus is coming back from the east, and everybody's going to see him, and he's going to have thousands upon thousands of his angels with him, and Jesus is going to be the biggest and brightest. Bingo, we're talking crafts. All these crafts coming from the east, and everyone's going to see them. These crafts are going to be picking us up, taking us somewhere else to a new heaven and a new earth.
So I mean, pretty much the rapture would be a mass abduction.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, because that would make so much more sense than than waking up one day and watching your neighbor float off into the sky.
Well, true, but abduction maybe has a negative connotation to it. Let's just say a mass
visitation,
rapture,
mass visitation. Mass welcoming, welcoming home. Yes,
a mass movement, transportation. In mass.
The end of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where Richard Dreyfuss actually willingly goes onto the craft with with the aliens, and that's kind of like he was raptured. That's how it is. It's kind of that's one of those things. But man, everybody, I'm telling you, you got to get this book.
Get the book.
You can go to a site, crossingthecrevasse.com, and purchase it directly from there. Now, can they get a signed copy from you, or is that?
Yeah, if they purchase it directly from there, that's what they get is a signed color copy. But there's also a link to go to Amazon. It's on Kindle, grayscale, and color. One thing I did learn real fast, if you put one color picture in the book, and I needed to put some of those color pictures in the book, one page makes the whole book color, so it becomes exponentially more expensive. That's why there's such a price difference between the color book and the grayscale book.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. So
I learned that, by the way. So one page
stays. Yeah, April, take me. The rapture. Yeah, like I said, go to crossingthecrevasse.com. You can find more information. You can see what he's coming up on his next shows. You can catch YouTube, type in Wallace Wagner. You can see a lot of different shows. They cover, a little longer, so you're going to get a little more in depth in him than unfortunately, we were, had to kind of hit and miss on touch things. But I feel like we hit on most of the highlights. I believe
the good stuff.
That's right. Thank you. So it's, Wallace, I thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. This has been great. Thank you.
Oh, I said this hour plus has flown for me. It's been, the chat has been, it's been amazing. Everybody watching Insta, I appreciate that. But thanks again. I definitely, as things are going, I would love to have you back on, and hit on, this plus, some other, aspects. Cause I said, we barely got onto his, his journey into Israel and Egypt, and that part in the beginning of the book, that's within the first, I want to say like first 20 or 30 pages is where you bring into that. And that right there is just an amazing story where he went through. A little teaser. When he went to Bethlehem, that is an awesome little story about why you make sure you have what you have in your pocket and not have in your pocket. So there's a little teaser. It was
closed off at the time. I had to pull a few strings with my personal guide to get me over there. He knew somebody, so I got traded off amongst the machine guns and the barbed wire fence. To even get over there. So it's open now.
Yep. So that's like I said. So everybody, like I said, the Reading Rainbow thing. If you want to know the rest of the story, you need to go buy the book, So I don't want to give it away. That's an amazing story. So
and I am writing a second book. It hopefully will be out by the end of the year, and the Book of Enoch will be in the appendix.
Oh, awesome. That's once again, everybody read the Book of Enoch. That is just an amazing thing. If you have not done it, you must. So, all right, sir. Well, hey, please the wife, thank you for sharing your time and her time with us. So I said, let you get back to her.
All right. Well, thank you very much, guys. I've really enjoyed this. This has literally been fun. I've really enjoyed this.
Awesome. We're glad to hear that. Thank you so much. So
appreciate it.
All right. Have a great night.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye. All right, everybody. Man, well, isn't that just fantastic? So, I mean, I hope everybody enjoyed it as much as I did. I mean, I really do, because my mind is just, it's like round 2 with Jared Murphy is going to be the same thing. I mean, if you like this one, stick here for the next show, because we're going to be still talking about aliens and lost technology and the stuff that we didn't hear. So this show will be rebroadcast tomorrow evening at 8:00 on Patriot Radio. Download the Zeno radio app. You can re-listen to this, and we are proudly promoted on there by J&J Beard Company. Go to jjbeardco.com. Thank them, for being willing to put us on their radio station, and we really appreciate that. Sponsor Nanny Cakes 407 on Facebook, or give her a call at 407-923-2898 in the Central Florida area. You're going to, mention us, you're going to save 15% on that. So I go threebeardspodcast.com, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. Follow us on there, subscribe. Appreciate everybody watching. Thanks again. Thanks again, Wallace Wagner Jr. That was an amazing conversation. Crossingthecrevasse.com. Go there, buy this book. You will not be sorry that you did. This one is a fantastic book. So thanks everybody for watching. We will see you later. Good night.